Welcome to Nosleep Radio, the channel that brings you chilling tales of horror and the supernatural. We hope our stories give you moments of relaxation and help you stay focused as you work or unwind. Today's episode features a story submitted by one of our listeners. The story's titled, The Mortuary Rules.
Everyone said I was crazy to take this job. Maybe they were right, but when you're a med school dropout with crushing debt and no other prospects, a night shift at a private mortuary with unusually high pay becomes very appealing, especially when you have no other choice. My name is Derek, 22 years old, and I just became a part-time employee at Sack, Flint & Sons, a private funeral home dating back to the 19th century, located on the outskirts of Edinburgh, Scotland. The old sandstone house stood isolated at the end of a lonely road, surrounded by withered pines and a low, moss-covered stone wall. "Are you sure you want to work here?" Dr. Monroe, my former professor, asked when he wrote my recommendation letter. "That place has a bad reputation. I need the money, and I'm not afraid of corpses." He gave me a strange look. "You should be." I thought he was joking. On my first day, I met Mr. Flint, the owner of the mortuary, a gaunt man with a severe face, his neatly trimmed white beard making his age impossible to guess, anywhere between 60 and 80. Mr. Flint wasn't much of a talker. He simply gave me a quick tour of the facility, the cold room that stored the bodies, the embalming room, the preparation room, the office area, and the viewing lounge for grieving families. "Your job is simple," Mr. Flint said. "Night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., monitor the cold room temperature, update the logbooks, and prepare any new arrivals before Hannah comes in for the morning shift." "Do a lot of people die at night?" I asked. "Most people die at night," Mr. Flint replied without looking at me, "especially between 3 and 4 a.m., the devil's hour." A chill crept down my spine, but I tried to stay calm. "One more thing," Mr. Flint said, handing me a framed sheet of paper. "These rules: no negotiation, no exceptions." I skimmed through the list. "Never turn off the lights in the cold room for any reason. Do not talk to the spirits of the dead. Do not open Cold Locker 7 on Thursdays. Always wear gloves when handling a body. Never work alone after 3 a.m. Always double lock the front door when leaving. If you hear knocking after 10 p.m., do not open the door. If the phone rings exactly at midnight, answer before the third ring. If your name is called 3 times in a row, do not turn around. If you encounter a stranger in the hallway, ask who they are looking for. Do not touch a dead person's belongings without gloves. Always carry salt in your pocket." I stared at Mr. Flint, unable to hide my disbelief. "This is some kind of prank for new employees, right?" "There is no joking here, Mr. Sullivan," Mr. Flint said, his face expressionless. "These rules were written in blood and tears. Break them, and you will pay the price." I thought he was just trying to scare me, a hazing ritual for rookies. But as he showed me how to operate the equipment and explained the procedures, I started to wonder why such a small mortuary on the outskirts of town would pay such high wages to a dropout like me. "Sebastian will be at the gate," Mr. Flint added. "If there's a problem, call him, but I advise you not to bother him unless it's absolutely necessary." He prepared to leave as my first shift began. At the doorway, he stopped and turned back toward me. "One last thing, Sullivan. No matter what you hear or what you see throughout the night, remember this: the dead do not always rest." With that, Mr. Flint left me alone with the refrigerators and the unsettling feeling that something was terribly wrong in this place. But it was too late to back out. I needed the money, and this was my only chance. At the time, I had no idea that this first night shift would only be the beginning of the most horrifying series of events in my life. The first night shift began quietly enough. I sat in the small office, flipping through the files of the current clients. 4 bodies. An old man dead from a stroke, a middle-aged woman who died of cancer, a young man who committed suicide, and one unidentified body marked only as pending. Strange. Around 11 p.m., I decided to check the cold room temperature, just as Mr. Flint had instructed. The frigid room was lined with stainless steel freezers that reflected the sickly white fluorescent lights. I quickly checked the temperature of each locker, jotting the readings down on the form. When I reached locker number 7, I froze. There was nothing unusual about it, but rule number 3 suddenly flashed through my mind. Do not open cold locker number 7 on Thursdays. Tonight was Tuesday, but even so, I felt a strange unease. I hurriedly noted the temperature and moved on. When I returned to the office, I noticed a missed call on the landline. No number displayed, no message left. I shrugged and decided to kill time by watching a movie on my laptop. The clock struck midnight, and as if on cue, the office phone began to ring. I jumped, rule number 8, rushing into my thoughts. If the phone rings exactly at midnight, answer before the 3rd ring. 1. 2. I grabbed the receiver. Flint & Sons Mortuary, Derek speaking, I said, trying to sound professional. Silence. Then a faint breath. Hello, I asked. It has arrived. The voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. I couldn't tell if it was male or female. Sorry, what has arrived? Who is this? I asked, my pulse quickening. It is in the room with you. The line went dead. I slowly set the phone down, forcing myself to believe it was just a prank. Maybe Sebastian, the security guard, or Hannah, the day shift co-worker I hadn't yet met. I tried to go back to the movie, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept darting toward the door leading to the hallway. Every little sound started to stand out, the creak of the ducts, the clicks of the cooling system, the whisper of wind against the windows. Around 2 a.m., I decided to use the restroom. The bathroom was at the end of the hall across from the preparation room. As I walked past the cold room, I heard a faint sound inside, like scratching. I stopped, listening. Scrape, scrape, scrape. I muttered to myself. It's just the cooling system, but I opened the cold room door anyway. The room looked the same as before, quiet, cold, rows of steel freezers. I listened again, nothing. I turned to leave when I heard another sound, softer this time, like a whisper. Derek. I froze. Someone had just called my name. The voice seemed to come from locker 4, the one holding the young suicide victim. Derek, help me. My heart pounded as rule number 2 slammed into my mind. Do not talk to the spirits of the dead. It's just my imagination, I whispered. Nothing's there. Derek, I know you hear me. Open the door. The voice was clearer now, young, male, pleading. I stumbled back toward the exit. Derek, Derek. My breath caught. Rule number 9. If your name is called 3 times in a row, do not turn around. Too late. I had already heard it. I spun and bolted from the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I stood in the hallway, sweating despite the cold. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement, a shadow emerging from the preparation room. I whipped around and nearly screamed as a tall man stepped out. Jesus! I gasped. You all right? The man asked. He was broad-shouldered, in his 50s, dressed in a security uniform. Sebastian? I asked, remembering the night guard's name. He nodded. I heard noises, so I came to check. What happened? I think I heard a voice from inside the freezer, I admitted, feeling foolish for saying it aloud. Sebastian didn't laugh. He just looked at me with grim seriousness. Did you answer it? No, I said quickly. Rule number 2. He nodded, looking satisfied. Good. Come with me. We'll check the building together. It's past 3 a.m. Remember, rule number 5. Never work alone after 3. We made a round of the mortuary. Sebastian spoke little, only giving occasional instructions. When we returned to the office, I noticed he always carried a small white pouch. What's that? I asked. Salt, Sebastian replied, eyes wary. Rule number 12. Always carry salt. Why salt? He just looked at me. You'll know when you need it. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, but I couldn't shake the whispers from locker number 4. When Hannah arrived to take over the morning shift at 6 a.m., I was almost ecstatic to leave. How was your first night? Hannah asked. She was a red-haired woman in her mid-20s, her warm smile oddly out of place in such a grim setting. Normal, I lied. Just a bit sleepy. You'll get used to it. And she lowered her voice. And you know, if you hear anything, don't answer. As I left, I wondered what I had gotten myself into. But I needed the money. And besides, it was all in my head, right? Even so, on the way home, I stopped at a grocery store and bought a large bag of salt.
After my first night shift, I slept through a storm of nightmares, filled with whispers and endless rows of freezer doors. When I finally woke in the afternoon, I decided to dig deeper into Flint & Son's Mortuary. A few quick searches on Google told me that the place had been operating since 1872, founded by one Ezekiel Flint, most likely the ancestor of the current owner. More interesting, however, were the threads on local forums. Many people in Edinburgh considered it haunted, with stories of strange noises at night, of people who entered the mortuary but never came back out, of suspicious employee deaths over the decades. Nonsense, I told myself, though my heart wasn't fully convinced. I remembered the whisper from the night before. Could that really have been a voice from a corpse? I arrived early for my second shift, hoping to catch Hannah before she left. Luckily, she was still finishing paperwork when I walked in. Hey, Derek, she greeted me with a smile. Sleep well last night? Not exactly, I admitted. Hannah, can I ask you something? She glanced around, as if to check if anyone was listening, then nodded. Not here. In the prep room. Flint is still in the office. We walked into the embalming room, a simple chamber with a stainless steel table in the center, tools and chemicals neatly arranged on shelves. No clients were being processed. So, Hannah leaned against the table. What do you want to know? These rules, are they really important? Or just some kind of superstition cooked up by a cranky old man? Hannah studied me. Have you broken any yet? No, I replied quickly. But I heard a voice from one of the freezers. It always starts that way. What starts? Listen, Derek, she said seriously. Those rules aren't a joke. They exist for very real reasons. This place isn't normal. You believe in ghosts? I asked with a weak laugh. I believe in what I've seen and heard, she replied flatly. And I've been here long enough to know Flint's mortuary isn't like any other. Hannah told me about the history of the mortuary. Ezekiel Flint, the founder, wasn't just an embalmer. He had studied the occult, performed experiments on corpses. According to local legend, he sought to open a doorway between the world of the living and the dead. But that's just folklore, Hannah said, though her tone didn't sound convinced. And the current Flint? Harold Flint, 5th generation. He knows more than he lets on. Do you know why this position is always vacant? The last guy, Liam, lasted 2 weeks. He quit? Hannah shook her head. He broke Rule 7. Opened the door after a knock past 10 p.m. They found him inside freezer number 7, frozen solid. Nobody knows how or why he ended up in there. A chill crawled up my spine. You're just trying to scare me. I'm trying to warn you, Hannah said firmly. And I'll tell you one more thing. Sometimes a special client arrives, usually on a Thursday. They're always placed in freezer number 7. Who? I don't know. Only Flint handles those cases. But after, things always get worse. Louder whispers, more incidents. She checked the time. I have to go. But listen, Derek. If you want to survive this job, follow the rules. No exceptions. When Hannah left, I was left with a heavy feeling in my chest. Part of me wanted to dismiss it all as ghost stories, but another part couldn't deny what I'd heard last night.
I began my second shift, nervous. While checking the cold storage temperatures, I avoided freezer number 4, the one where I'd heard the voice. Freezer 7 was still empty. I wondered about Hannah's special client. Around 11 p.m., the phone rang. I answered cautiously.
Flint & Sons Mortuary, Derek speaking.
Body incoming, a cold male voice said. 15 minutes. At this hour? I asked, confused. Special case. Flint's been notified. Prepare freezer 7. The line cut before I could ask more. My heart thumped. Freezer 7, the special client, on a Wednesday night. I called Sebastian immediately, explained the situation. I'll be right there, he said tensely. Do not touch the body. Understand? Leave it to me. 15 minutes later, a sleek black van pulled up outside. 2 men in black carried a body bag inside. They didn't say a word, just handed over a thin file and left as quickly as they came. Sebastian opened the file. Mary Winters, 27. Cause of death? Undetermined. Undetermined? What does that mean? Don't ask, Sebastian snapped. The less you know, the better. Help me put her in 7. We laid the body bag on the steel table in the cold room. Sebastian unzipped it briefly, checking the contents. I caught a glimpse of pale white skin, long black hair, lips with a faint bluish tint. She looks strange, I whispered. Don't look, Sebastian barked, zipping it shut, and never speak of her again. We slid the bag into freezer 7 and shut the door. I swear the room dropped a few degrees colder. Sebastian hurried me out. Remember, he said, Rule 3, never open 7 on a Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, don't open it. Why? Who is she? I asked. You don't want to know. Now help me check the doors. Tonight won't be normal. As we walked the halls, I glanced back at the cold room. I could swear I heard something. Faint. A lullaby, sung softly in a woman's voice. Mary Winters had arrived, and I had a bad feeling things were about to get much, much worse.
After Mary Winters was placed in freezer 7, everything changed. The temperature throughout the mortuary seemed to drop, despite the heating system running at full power. Lights flickered randomly, and strange sounds echoed constantly through the pipes and vents. Sebastian stayed with me until 4 a.m., silent and tense. Every half hour he checked the cold room door, but he never stepped inside, only peered through the tiny glass window. Do you think something will happen? I asked as we sat in the office sipping cold coffee. I don't think, I know, Sebastian said slowly. Cases like Mary Winters, they never truly rest. What do you mean? He only shook his head. Will you take Thursday night's shift? Of course, I said. I signed a contract. Bring more salt, Sebastian muttered, and maybe pray. He left at 4 a.m., leaving me alone with my thoughts and my fear. The rest of the shift passed in suspicious quiet. When Hannah arrived at 6, she looked tense. I heard about Mary Winters. Are you okay? What's the deal with her? Why is everyone so afraid? I asked. Hannah glanced around nervously. Mary Winters isn't her real name. It's a code name Flint & Sons use for certain cases. We get one every few months. Always a young woman, always with blue lips, always placed in freezer 7. How did she die? Nobody knows, or if someone does, they're not talking. But there are rumors. Some say they're victims of some kind of ritual. The problem is, whenever a merry winter shows up, strange things happen for the next 24 hours, especially on Thursday. That's today. I left for home with a heavy feeling. I couldn't sleep no matter how tired I was. I searched online for merry winters, but found nothing. Instead, I found articles about ancient rituals and the belief that certain deaths could create bridges between the living and the dead. When I returned Thursday night, Harold Flint himself was waiting. It was rare to see him at this hour. "Sullivan," he nodded, "you've been informed about the occupant of Freezer 7. "Yes, sir." "Remember Rule 3, never open 7 on a Thursday." "Yes, sir." "No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, no matter who tells you otherwise, don't open it. Understood?" I nodded, uneasy at his serious tone. "Sebastian has family matters tonight," Flint continued. "You'll be alone. Remember Rule 5. Never work alone after 3 a.m., I recited. "I'll return at 3. Don't do anything foolish." He left. I sat in the office tense and alert. The first 2 hours passed in silence. But at 11:45, the phone rang. "Flint and Sons Mortuary, Derek speaking." "She's waking up," a deep, aged voice said. "Not Flint, not Sebastian. You need to check Freezer 7. "Who is this?" My pulse quickened. "She needs help. You must open it. She can't breathe." I slammed the phone down, hand shaking. Rule 3 echoed in my head. Never open Freezer 7 on Thursday. Minutes later, noises began from the cold room. Scratches at first, then banging. Heart hammering, I crept to the door and peered through the glass. Nothing unusual, but the sounds continued. Scratch, scratch, thump. Then I heard it. Labored breathing, faint sobs. A woman's voice. "Please, someone, I'm alive. Please, I can't breathe. It's so cold." I froze. Could it be true? Was she alive in there? Or was this a trick? The cries grew more desperate. "Please, I'm dying." I couldn't stand still any longer. I opened the cold room door. Frosty air spilled over me. I stepped toward Freezer 7, trembling. "I'm sorry, but I can't open this," I said aloud. The crying stopped. After a long silence, a different voice spoke. Low, inhuman. "Then we'll have to come out another way." A blast of icy wind hissed through the freezer's seams. Lights flickered violently. I stumbled back, heart ready to burst. I spun to run and saw a dark figure blocking the exit. A woman in a white dress, long black hair hanging over her face. Her pale blue hands gripped the doorway. I screamed, stumbling into Freezer 5. Who are you?" I stammered. She slowly raised her head. A deathly pale face. Blue lips. Empty black pits for eyes. "You broke the rules," she hissed, in a voice that wasn't human. "Now you belong to us." Rule 12 jolted into my mind. Salt. I dug into my pocket, grabbed the packet Sebastian had told me to carry. With desperate force, I flung a fistful at her. She shrieked in an unearthly scream, body twisting unnaturally. I bolted past her, slammed the cold room door shut, and ran for the office. My hands trembled as I dialed Flint. He answered instantly, as if expecting the call. "What have you done?" His voice was cold. I didn't open it," I panted. "But she's out. Mary Winters, she's in the cold room." "Stay where you are," Flint ordered. "Pour salt around your desk. Do not leave the circle. No matter what happens, I'm on my way." I obeyed, hands shaking as I poured a circle around myself. My heart pounded, sweat dripping though the room was freezing. Time dragged endlessly. I didn't dare look at the door, but I could feel something in the hall, watching, waiting. Then came the knock. 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 "Derek?" Mary's sweet, lilting voice sang. "Open the door. I won't hurt you. I just want to talk." I held my breath. "Derek, you can't hide forever. You broke the rules. Now you must pay." Her nails scraped the door, soft at first, then harder until it screeched like tearing steel. "Derek, open it!" The clock struck 3, The front doors opened. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hall. "Flint!" I shouted. I heard his deep voice outside, speaking words I couldn't understand, a language old and harsh. Then came Mary's agonized scream and a crash as if something slammed into the wall. Silence followed. Moments later, the office door opened. Flint stood there, drenched in sweat, his suit torn, clutching a large sack of salt and a flask of cloudy liquid that looked like blood.
Where is she?
I gasped. "Back where she belongs," Flint said curtly. "But not thanks to you." "I didn't open the freezer, I swear." "No, you didn't," Flint sighed. "But you broke Rule 2. You spoke to the dead." I thought back. When I told the voice, "I'm sorry, but I can't open this," I had answered it. I had broken the rule. I didn't mean to," I stammered. "That's why we have rules," Flint said tiredly. "Not to burden you, but to protect you and all of us." We sat in silence until dawn, encircled by salt. When Hannah arrived, she glanced at me knowingly. "You saw her," she said softly. Not a question. I nodded weakly. "And you're still alive?" She shook her head, astonished. "You're lucky, Derek Sullivan." Lucky? I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I'd seen something humans weren't meant to see. And I knew, with chilling certainty, Mary Winters wouldn't give up so easily. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mary Winters' black, empty eyes. I started digging for answers. Hannah agreed to help me. She admitted she'd been researching on her own for months. "Flint knows more than he tells us," she whispered one morning after her shift. "If we want to survive this, we need to know the truth." We began searching old records in the mortuary basement, yellowed newspapers, death certificates, journals. Patterns emerged. Since the late 1800s, every generation of Flint & Sons had documented a Mary Winters arriving roughly every 20 years. Always the same description, always freezer 7, always chaos after. "Impossible," I muttered. "She can't be the same woman for over a century." "Unless she's not really human anymore," Hannah said quietly. We needed more. Hannah remembered a woman in town, Eliza Lambert, a historian who studied Edinburgh's darker past. We visited her tiny stone cottage on the edge of town.
Mary Winters? The old woman repeated, eyes narrowing. "I've heard that name. It was whispered when I was a girl. My grandmother told me of a girl taken in 1896. A girl sacrificed. She rummaged through stacks of papers and brought out an old photograph. A group of men in Victorian suits. One stood out, sharp eyes, severe expression. The caption read, Ezekiel Flint, 1896. My stomach turned. "Eliza," I asked, voice trembling, "what happened to the girl?" "She was offered," Eliza said bluntly, "to something not of this world. The Flints were not just undertakers, they were keepers of a pact." A pact. The word rang in my ears like a curse. Back at the mortuary, Hannah and I searched deeper. In a locked drawer in Flint's office, we found a worn, leather-bound journal. Ezekiel Flint's. The entries were chilling. June 12, 1896. The offering is prepared. The girl resists, but the pact must be honored. June 13. She is bound to the circle. The heartstone glows. The vessel accepts her. She is ours now, forever. The journal ended abruptly, pages stained with something dark. "That's it," Hannah whispered. "Mary Winters isn't a ghost. She's a vessel, created by the Flints, fed to something ancient." That night, we confronted Flint. He didn't deny it. The pact keeps balance. It binds the darkness to this place. Without it, the world suffers. "And the victims," I shouted, "the Mary Winters of every generation? Necessary sacrifices." Sebastian appeared then, older and more menacing than ever. His eyes glowed faintly, not fully human. "You should never have read the journal,"
he growled. We ran out of the mortuary, through the foggy streets, clutching the journal. Flint's voice echoed behind us, "You cannot escape. The pact binds us all." We fled to the only place we thought sacred enough to resist, the abandoned St. Margaret's Church. Candles still lined the altar, melted to stubs from rituals long forgotten. There, Hannah read from the journal, trying to reverse the words Ezekiel had written. As she chanted, the air thickened, cold filled the church, and Mary Winters appeared, her form flickering between the pale woman I had seen and something monstrous, skeletal, bound by chains of shadow. "You can't break the pact," Flint's voice boomed as he entered, Sebastian behind him. "It is older than you, older than me." But Hannah didn't stop. Her voice grew louder, defiant. Mary shrieked, her body twisting, chains shattered around her. For a brief moment, her eyes were human, blue, tear-filled. "Thank you," she whispered. Then her body dissolved into light. The church shook violently. Flint screamed, his face withering and skin cracking like dry parchment. Sebastian staggered, clutching his chest as black smoke poured from his mouth. Both collapsed into dust before our eyes. Then silence. The candles blew out. The cold lifted. Hannah and I stood alone in the ruins, trembling, holding each other. "It's over," she whispered. But I wasn't so sure. Outside, dawn was breaking. For the first time in days, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Yet deep down, I knew the truth. Mary Winters was free, but the pact wasn't gone. It was only broken, and broken things can be remade. As we walked away from St. Margaret's, I looked back once more. For a split second, I swore I saw a figure in white watching us from the shattered window. Blue lips, dark eyes. And I knew my connection to this strange, cursed world had only just begun.
And that concludes today's story. We wish you a relaxing time and a productive day ahead. If you enjoyed the story, please support us by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a like, so you won't miss any of the upcoming tales from Nosleep Radio. See you again